Welcome once more to the Gaming Codex, the show where I try to explain to you all the various terms used within video games and the video games industry. And today's term is cheats. And what exactly would that be? Well, according to the general-ish definition, cheating in a video game involves the video game player using non-standard methods to create an advantage or disadvantage beyond normal gameplay in order to make the game easier or harder. The first documented case of cheating in a video game was in Tennis for Two, where one player tried to get the other one to stop playing properly by telling him there's a spider on their shoulder. That's not actually true, but there's a good chance that Tennis for Two, as being one of the first video games, also had the first cheater. Cheating in video games can take many forms. Well, they can take three basic forms. One of them is the intended way. The developer implements a command in the game that allows you to circumvent certain aspects of it, to deactivate certain components of it, or to enable extra features. For example, there is the classic IDDQD code, which once entered in Doom renders you invulnerable to enemy fire. Therefore, it kind of disables the whole damaging the player mechanic. You can use IDDKFA to give you all the keys in the game and all the weapons and all the ammo for them, and there are many other cheats of this type that will let you enable or disable certain other features. One of Need for Speed 2's most infamous codes would replace your car with a log. Another way by which you can enable or disable features or gain an advantage in a video game is by using a memory editor. This is what's mostly known as hacking the game. It is still cheating, but it is done via hacking, where you have to change certain values of certain variables until you get the desired effect. It's a much simpler process these days than it used to be on account of you have a lot of memory editors that can just look for the variable you want to change, its current value, what value it's changed to, and you can then change it to whatever you want it to be. There was also hacking of the save game file itself, where instead of editing the memory of the running game, you would edit the save file and change the variables you wanted to something different, again to gain an advantage or do something else. And lastly, we have cheats via microtransactions. Now you may laugh and say, well, that's just some meme people came up with. You don't actually cheat by buying things in a game. That's just a convenience feature. No, you absolutely can cheat in certain games by just buying the cheats. The Assassin's Creed series is famous for this. It had DLC. It was called DLC, sold as DLC, in the form of extra resources that you would need to upgrade your character's equipment in the game. You could also obtain those resources via the second type of cheating, via hacking, but it was intended for you to buy them. That's why the progression usually was so garbage in most of them. It wasn't a convenience thing. If it was a convenience thing, it would have been in the game as an actual cheat. I should probably do a show about this later, but you do see this happening quite often, where the progression of a game is subject to you being given the ability to use microtransactions to skip it, but by default you tend to get story modes that disable or cripple the rest of the game itself, the gameplay. There's more of an emphasis put on you having to go through the progression, usually the slow agonizing progression, than it is to actually play the game. Now, what would be the popular definition of cheats? Well, that tends to be hackers. Hackers everywhere. And it's not really that far from the truth, because hackers tend to be a big problem in video games and multiplayer video games, or single player ones that have a sort of a connected type universe thing with persistent online and other elements. Hacking can be annoying because it creates a disparity of power between the players. Not a disparity of skill, but a disparity of power, because it doesn't matter how good you are in a video game. If the hacker disables his character from taking damage, you can no-scope 360 them in the face all day long, they'll still win. They can get infinite ammo. They can get the ability to see exactly where you are constantly behind 5 walls and a kilometer away on a different part of the island if you're playing PUBG. And they tend to be everywhere because some people, even in multiplayer games, like to cheat. They need to have that constant advantage over everybody else because they know at their hearts that they absolutely stink at those games. And if the playing field was equal, they would be absolutely creamed. So they cheat, they hack. And then they get a sense of satisfaction from that hacking because to them, they see that this is their triumph. That, oh look how easy I am destroying these people with my abilities. I am God, until they get banned. Because there are methods of detecting cheats, they're not perfect, but they eventually get there, hopefully. I mean, that is, if the developer actually tries and prevent cheating. Because you will see some developers using justifications like, well, every game has cheaters, so why should ours be any different? Thankfully, those developers from Ubisoft Romania are not involved in the Ubisoft part that makes Rainbow Six Siege, so that game actually tries to reduce the number of hackers it has. And that endeavor so far has worked. The number of hackers has decreased considerably compared to what it was 2 years ago. Now, what is the marketing definition of cheats? Well, that would be microtransaction heaven. The moment that publishers realize they can sell to people methods by which they can circumvent parts of the game, they found a new way of monetization. And this can be seen in convenience items like instantly having a level 100 character in World of Warcraft. It has been seen in Ubisoft's approach to letting you skip most of the resource gathering in Assassin's Creed. It has been seen in pretty much everything that Electronic Arts does recently with their loot boxes, though even that's not directly cheating, it's gamble, and maybe one of the cheats will fall that you need to actually get more powerful. There was a time, again, when developers were not so aggressive with monetizing the cheats. They would implement things like big head modes in their games. They would implement things like alternative costumes for characters in their games and not have them be DLC. They would even implement modes that change the game completely. For example, the Saber Realistic mode from Jedi Knight 2 and Jedi Academy. That completely changed the way you played, because it made the lightsaber almost an instant kill. And that wasn't valid just for your lightsaber, but for everybody's lightsaber. So if in a fight at the end, after you just killed an enemy completely, chopped them in half, chopped off their hands, their heads, their feet, and their lightsaber flew out, and before it closed, it hit you in the face, you were dead. Yeah, the game is easier against stormtroopers and people you actually managed to hit, but you'll die instantly if you get hit by a lightsaber. In the current market, that would be DLC. That would be a separate mode that you have to buy. And up to a point it needs to be, because AAA video games today are incredibly expensive to develop. Their budgets have gone insane. Their marketing budgets have gone ridiculously over any limit possible. And if just one of them fails, it can drag a whole company down. So implementing cheats as microtransactions, as DLC, that reduces the risk of the entire company going under because they spent too much money on one game and yet somehow still managed to not make it good on account of they made things like the progression so horrible so that you would be enticed to cheat via microtransactions. But you'll probably do it via a cheat engine on account of it's free. So closes this edition of the Gaming Codex. Come back next time and we will talk about something different. Goodbye.